merited their skills. They only got 20, and you could see how close that would have been. Nefertari, eh? Yeah, imagine not getting that under pressure. But no, really good team, and what can I say? Well played.
That's the way it goes. So, Cinnamon takes down my team with 9 seconds remaining, and they go home empty-handed. Which begs the question, could you take down a chaser? Well, come and have a go if you think you're clever enough. We'll see you next time on The Chase. Goodbye.
Tonight on My News, the Reserve Bank's hacked. The race now on to find out how a data system was breached and the sensitive information accessed. The Indonesia plane crash site is located. Debris pulled from the water after a passenger plane plummets from the sky. What happened in the flight's final moments? Plus, more than 30 COVID cases picked up at the border. The latest figures showing a sharp rise in the contagious UK strain. Good evening. There's been a cyber attack at the heart of New Zealand's banking sector. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand says it's responding urgently to a breach of one of its data systems. Kristen Hall is in Wellington. Kia ora, Kristen. What more can you tell us?
Kia ora, Melissa. Well, the Reserve Bank says a third-party file sharing system which had been used to store and share personally and commercially sensitive information has been illegally accessed. Now, it's not known yet who is behind this attack, but the Reserve Bank Governor, Adrian Orr, says the breach has been contained. The system has been shut down and taken offline. Now, the Reserve Bank wouldn't say when this attack happened, but that it is working with international and domestic cybersecurity experts to try and figure out how this happened, along with other authorities. The GCSB and finance ministers, as well as the Prime Minister, have also been made aware of this breach. Now, it wouldn't confirm the name of this file sharing service, but it says that it has contacted users whose information may have been accessed to make them aware of the breach. The Reserve Bank also wanted to reiterate that its core functions, such as printing cash, for example, have remained unaffected. Now, a spokesperson that I spoke to couldn't say whether there had been a previous breach of this scale at the Reserve Bank in the past. He said that he was pretty sure that there hadn't been, but you may remember that there was a sustained cyber attack at the NZX that happened throughout August and September last year. Now, after that happened, the Reserve Bank issued draft guidance around cybersecurity resilience to the finance sector, saying that attacks could cost the industry more than $100 million a year. It's now the Reserve Bank itself that's been the target of one of these attacks, Melissa.
Thanks for the update, Kristen. Search parties in Indonesia are continuing to comb the waters of the Java Sea after a passenger plane crashed with 62 people on board. The Boeing 737, owned by Sriwijaya Air, took off from the capital, Jakarta, at around 2:40 p.m. local time, heading north towards Pontianak. But just 4 minutes into its journey, it disappeared off the radar. Flight trackers show the plane falling 10,000 feet in less than a minute, with witnesses reporting a large explosion shortly after. Jenny Saw with the latest.
It was meant to be just a 90-minute flight. But tonight, families are still waiting for news of their loved ones on board a plane that never made it to its destination. Yamin Zai came to the airport to pick up his wife and 3 daughters. All of the 62 people on board were Indonesian, 10 of them children, and 12 were crew members. We deployed several ships from the Navy, while the police deployed 6 ships for the search and rescue operation. Rescuers quickly found what they thought could be debris, and this afternoon, reports 2 bodies have been pulled from the water. It's monsoon season in Indonesia. Heavy rain had delayed flight SJ182 by about an hour. But just minutes after taking off, a flight radar showed the Boeing 737-500 making a sudden turn before falling out of the sky. Aviation officials have been here before. The suspected crash site isn't far from where a Lion Air 737 MAX plunged into the sea in 2018, killing all 189 people on board. It was one of 2 crashes that led to all 737 MAX planes being pulled from service until last month. The Sriwijaya plane is not a 737 MAX. At 26 years old, it's a more dated model.
The plane was in a good condition. There shouldn't have been any problem, and the maintenance report was also fine.
High demand for domestic travel in Indonesia has seen a boom in low-cost airlines, leading to questions over aircraft safety. Questions now bound to be raised again, along with many more from the grieving families of another 62 people. Jenny Saw, One News.
New Zealand's latest COVID-19 numbers show a sharp rise in the UK strain being picked up at the border. Of the 31 new cases over the past 3 days, more than a third have been the highly contagious variant. And for the first time, the South African strain has made its way to our shores. Let's cross line to Ryan Boswell in Christchurch. Kia ora, Ryan.
Yes, the Ministry of Health saying that these new cases reinforces the need for ongoing vigilance at the border as COVID-19 continues to accelerate overseas. 11 of these new cases are linked to a group of international mariners who are staying here in Christchurch. Most of those have recovered. We've also learned today that 11 of the 31 new cases are the strain of the UK variant, and authorities are very concerned about that. They do say that it is a fast-spreading strain, and in total now, New Zealand has 19 people in the country with the UK strain. And for the first time too, the South African strain has made its way to New Zealand. There's one case. Now, these people have come from all around the world, and the Ministry of Health does say that those people with those different strains are being monitored in the same way as all other COVID cases, but it is continuing to watch developments overseas very closely, Melissa.
Tēnā koe, Ryan. Thank you very much. And to the UK now, where more than 1,000 people have died from the virus for a fourth day in a row, taking the total deaths since the start of the pandemic to more than 80,000. Top scientists now calling for a hard lockdown. We'll bring in our Europe correspondent, Daniel Faitawa, shortly, but first, his report.
A COVID clash in central London as police arrest a dozen anti-lockdown protesters for breaching national lockdown measures. The new variant rips across the country and infection numbers are skyrocketing. This was the scene at a park in the capital.
People are tired of being isolated and just, just confined in those four walls.
They're actually very low risk. I'm a little higher risk, but life is about an element of risk.
The new strain is spreading quickly and is much harder to control. Scientists say even stricter measures are urgently needed.
If we were to achieve the same results as we got in March, we would have to have a stricter lockdown, and it's not stricter, it's actually less strict.
More than 32,000 patients with COVID are being treated in hospitals, 11,000 more than during the peak of the first wave, and new admissions increasing by 4,000 every day.
It really is unprecedented in terms of the numbers of patients that require intensive care being put on a ventilator at one time.
Is to take on a small number of homeless COVID patients to help free up capacity. The country's most famous 90-somethings getting their vaccines, and the opening of mass vaccination centres can't come soon enough. This footage shows elderly people in a COVID vaccination queue for 3 hours in freezing temperatures outside a South London GP surgery.
People have been working tirelessly and relentlessly, but what's really powerful about the vaccination program is
much needed hope.
It brings hope. Hope, my darling.
Attitudes too.
Okay, Daniel, we saw the protest at the beginning of your story. From what you've seen, are people following the current restrictions?
Oh.
Well, Melissa, scientists say the vast majority of people are sticking to the rules, but there is a different feeling, there is a different vibe in this lockdown compared to the first lockdown. Road usage is up, train usage is up, and several schools are struggling to try and meet the demand for spaces for vulnerable and key workers' children. Now,
I don't know which one this is.
Facing at the moment is, of course, as you saw,
what one is
more
this?
people are out and about, and they're well aware that there is this highly infectious virus spreading, but they say that they've had enough. They are fed up, they are angry, they are tired, they are exhausted, and they just had really had enough of this government lockdown, these repeated lockdowns. So while there is a general compliance to follow the rules, they're not always being followed.
Okay, we've now heard a staggering 80,000 COVID-related deaths in the UK. Scientists are calling for those stricter measures. How likely is the government to listen to those calls?
Well, listen, yes, but unlikely. The government isn't looking to impose further restrictions here in the UK, but they are worried about compliance. So we can expect more public campaigns to be rolled out from next week, hammering home that message to stay at home. And also, there's going to be a tougher line on enforcement, with police not hesitating to act on COVID rule breakers by issuing instant fines.
Now, Mickey Daniel from a very picturesque-looking London tonight. President Trump's support appears to be crumbling, with a growing number of Republicans joining calls to remove him from office. In an historic move, House Democrats say they're pushing ahead with plans to impeach Donald Trump for a second time in the wake of the deadly siege on the US Capitol. The single article of impeachment expected on Monday. The hunt for rioters continues. Authorities announcing more arrests have been made, including the man photographed in war paint and horns, as well as a suspected rioter seen carrying the House Speaker's podium. Emily Van Veldhoven with today's developments.
With just 11 days left in power,
the person running the executive branch is a deranged, unhinged, dangerous President of the United States.
Turbulence, a theme of Donald Trump's term right till the end.
You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong.
Rattled and angry after Trump supporters stormed the US Capitol, Democrats want the president to pay the price.
They attempted a violent overthrow of Congress while we were trying to accept the certified electoral college results. If this is not impeachable conduct, then nothing is.
They'll start impeachment proceedings within days.
All indications are that the president has become unmoored, not just from his duty, nor even his own, but from reality itself.
Trump will be the first president to be impeached twice. Some Republicans already saying they're backing the move.
I do think the president committed impeachable offenses, but I don't know what is going to land on the Senate floor, if anything.
If found guilty, Trump won't be able to run for the presidency in 2024. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders echoing the calls, saying Trump must pay the price for his actions so it never happens again. The FBI's arrested more of his supporters, including this man who led a charge towards a lone policeman, and the horned man with war paint. This man also caught.
The activities of those involved in this siege of our capital were violent, they were destructive, and those actions cannot be tolerated, and those people must be held accountable.
Police under pressure to get a grip before the inauguration of Joe Biden next week. Whether Donald Trump remains in the White House right till the bitter end is still anyone's guess. Emily Van Veldhoven, One News.
Back here, delays in training new police officers has sparked a call to fast-track funds to pay for it. The government says it'll deliver 1,800 new recruits as promised by 2023. But advocates say frontline staff are needed now, and there's no shortage of quality applicants. Nicole Bremner reports.
When the going gets tough, police get to work, but there's concern a plan to bolster the thin blue lines being disrupted, with 3 courses of new recruits planned for the next 3 months now on hold.
We don't think there'd be worse timing. We've got recruits wanting to join the police, we've got the capacity to train them, and we've got a bigger need than ever.
Police National Headquarters say the deferred courses are due to fewer police leaving last year, meaning fewer newbies are needed. But 120 currently in training will graduate in February and March, another intakes planned for May. Police acknowledged last year they'd been swamped with applications, pressing pause on a process partially fuelled by the government's promise in 2017 of 1,800 new frontline officers. Nationals criticising the government for taking too long to deliver.
If the government was committed to cracking down on the increase in gangs, organised crime in New Zealand,
they'll be wanting to deliver on this 1,800 new police as quickly as possible.
The union's now calling on the government to fast-track funding already allocated for the additional police to ensure quality candidates don't start job hunting elsewhere. We asked the government whether it would consider an early release of funds already committed to police training. The response, any consideration would be subject to the standard cabinet approval considerations. So far, 1,300 new officers are on deck, partially offsetting 200 assigned to managed isolation facilities. But the union's still estimating a shortfall of 500 staff.
We're not asking for extra money, we're asking for the money they have promised to be brought forward.
They should be delivering on their promises, not telling New Zealanders one thing, which is we're going to deliver over 3 years, but putting the money over 5 or 6 years.
Money police claim will help counter mounting demands on their time. Nicole Bremner, One News.
Ihari Akine coming up, the coronavirus death toll soars in the US, leaving some non-COVID patients out in the cold as Californian hospitals simply run out of room to admit them. And the biggest Spanish snowfalls in 5 decades caused chaos throughout the country. Plus, a Dunedin couple's dogged search for 2 cherished pets who disappeared more than a year ago.
We can't go on like this.
I know. Welcome, the love of my life.
This is really cool. I feel like a therapist. You make a terrible therapist.
We've been neighbours for years.
And yet I barely know you.
New life starts tonight on One.
Hey, Jimmy, you're riding with Rodney?
Fire up and rod, eh?
Everyone gets riding on their first day.
Up and right. Don't worry about these bubbles. They're good guys. Yeah, the guys always joke, man. I like to be on site before they've even left the base, but you know, I like to get there early, have a muffin, relax. You like muffins? Oh, I just got a new V8. Not a bogey green one, though. Hey, let's take the scenic route, eh? It's longer, but I make it fun. That's why the guys, they do paper, scissors, rock to see who comes with me.
Because no one wants to go with that other dude you guys work with, eh? The one we're having a crack at this morning?
Who, Grubby Aaron?
Oh, no, you know, the guy that's always cutting it. No one wants to ride before.
You know that?
Yeah. Oh, man, Leon. Oh, he's got a V8 too.
Hey? No one else has a V8.
When did you last clean your carpets? It's time you hired a right doctor. New Zealand's most...
Oh, poos, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Oh, dear. Match slots 3. Oopsie days. Uh-oh.
just reported its deadliest coronavirus day yet. Almost 700 people died as the national death toll closes in on 372,000. Some hospitals are so overwhelmed that non-COVID patients are struggling to get inside for treatment. The ABC's Serene Shah has more.
Tonight, this chilling scene of a 24-year-old woman huddled in a blanket, laying on a pavement, sick with meningitis. Feet away from her, a Southern California hospital filled with COVID patients, unable to make space for just one more.
The fact that there's literally no beds available and admission times are very, elongated. It's what you see in movies. I never thought it was that bad.
One Los Angeles EMT describing wait times of up to 17 hours to bring in some of the sickest. Hospitals slammed. Cedars-Sinai Dr. Sam Trabati hasn't had a day off in 3 weeks.
It takes so much effort and energy to take care of them. And our staff, they're burning out.
Across the country, long lines and mounting frustration over the vaccine's slow rollout. More than 6 million doses administered, just 30% of the number distributed. New York City opening 5 vaccination sites on Monday. The state expanding the list of who can get the shot next, including daycare employees, firefighters, and police officers, and people over the age of 75. But it could take 14 weeks, nearly 4 months, to vaccinate just those groups.
Just because the reservations become available, don't expect everyone is going to get a reservation right away.
In Tennessee, the Lynns arriving in their camper at 5:30 in the morning.
I want to get a vaccine any way I can.
Back in California, the state marking its deadliest day of the pandemic, nearly 700 dead. 30-year-old nurse and mom of 5, Ashley Gomez, battling the virus while pregnant. Her baby made it. Ashley did not.
She got to see just the picture, so she didn't even get a chance to hold them, to, kiss them or anything.
Oh,
Life
that's
for
sad.
residents on Sydney's northern beaches is getting back to normal now lockdown's been lifted. It's been 3 weeks since the stay-at-home orders were made for 70,000 residents after a major outbreak in December. In Queensland, no new COVID-19 cases have been recorded today. The state is in its second day of lockdown due to a hotel quarantine worker testing positive to the highly infectious UK strain. So far, 15 people have been fined for breaching the 3-day order. Argentinians are flocking to the beaches in their thousands as authorities fear a new wave of cases. With social distancing and face coverings largely forgotten, holidaymakers are being reminded to mask up before heading out. The start of the festive period has already seen the country's new daily infections more than double. The French port city of Marseille is a very different picture. A curfew brought forward after the British mutant COVID strain was picked up in local testing. Restaurants and businesses now forced to shut earlier than ever, with the French government refusing to rule out more stringent measures for other cities if the crisis deepens. Breathalyzers are a proven way to check alcohol levels, but now Indonesia is trialling the technology to detect COVID-19. The device would get a reading in less than 2 minutes and is seen as a possible solution to the country's low testing rates, though there are concerns about its accuracy. Here's the ABC's Anne Barker.
It looks like a typical roadside breathalyzer, but instead of alcohol, it's testing for COVID-19. The simple device developed by Indonesian scientists works like an electronic nose. It can smell coronavirus in the breath and detect an infection in under 2 minutes.
The sensors can read the different patterns of COVID positive and negative.
A single test can be done in 80 seconds, much faster than the standard PCR test, which can take days for a result. That speed comes at the cost of accuracy, but as infections surge, Indonesia is desperate to stop the spread. Indonesia has now granted a distribution permit to roll out thousands of breathalyzers in weeks to increase mass testing at hospitals, airports and public places.
In the right place, 10,000 Genos units can test 1.2 million people a day. That is the highest testing rate in the world.
The science, I think, does back it up. The question is how well it can distinguish COVID from other lung infections, for example.
Despite around 740,000 infections so far and 22,000 deaths, Indonesia has one of the lowest testing rates in the world.
Here we're comparing testing that might not be as accurate as a PCR, but it's absolutely better than nothing.
Similar devices are being developed in several countries, including Australia, the UK and Singapore.
Winter storm Filomena has caused havoc across Spain, blamed for at least 4 deaths so far. The bodies of a man and woman were recovered from this car that was washed away by a flooded river in southern Spain. Other motorists have been stranded and public transport services shut down. The capital, Madrid, has experienced its heaviest snowfalls in 50 years, with a man found dead under a huge pile of snow. But some were relishing the extreme conditions, running the gauntlet. Back home, 2 Northland tribes prepare to go to war, or at least reenact the age-old battle of Ruapekapeka. And a Kiwi conservationist is back on his feet after almost losing a leg. And it's a cloudy Monday for many, but there will be plenty of sunny spells too. I'll have the forecast for your place after sport.
They've got the charm.
Hello, gorgeous Joe.
Hello, gorgeous Vixen.
And they speak their mind.
Hi, Patsy.
Oh my. GXN. I don't know. Let's get away. Oh, I'm tired.
What's your plans for tomorrow?
Hopefully, Pablos will be open.
Yeah.
I'm feeling so tired. Doesn't it feel like the end times?
Because of the coronavirus.
And everything else.
Yes. I often pray to Jesus to come back.
Fighting the Crown for rights guaranteed under Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Our Northern reporter Helen Castles was at today's events.
Acknowledging their ancestors.
175 years on from the end of the Battle of Ruapekapeka, and here we are, all together in the pā, and remembering those who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
A lot of history and kōrero has been passed down to us, the descendants, about it.
British troops attacked Te Ruapekapeka Pā in 1846, one of the first times relations between Māori and Pākehā deteriorated into warfare. The warriors built a pā suited to European warfare, but they were outnumbered and lacked heavy artillery.
On the 11th, they entered the pā. There was a battle that occurred right here on this ground where blood was spilt. 12
British soldiers were killed, dozens more injured. The architect of the pā and his allies withdrew. Both sides agree no one really won the battle. Today was the last of 3 days of commemorations attended by hundreds.
My understanding for it is remaining peace with the two iwi that were inside the pā.
175 years later, and Ngāpuhi is still fighting to settle its treaty grievances. Unable to reach a collective agreement, some sub-tribes are now looking to develop a mandate of their own.
The settlement process has always been about the grievances with the Crown, but in order to move forward, there's also the recognition of those grievances that are amongst us.
Certainly the seeds have been sown today about the understanding and having talk and clearing some space to have that talk.
With history fresh in their mind, the country's largest tribe hopes to make more progress on its claim next month when the treaty negotiation minister visits. Helen Castles, One News.
Kiwi environmentalist Pete Bethune has walked out of a Costa Rica hospital 2 weeks after being bitten by most of the Americas. The 55-year-old was deep in the jungle when a 30-lance snake struck him in the calf. There was so much venom in his body, there was concern whether he would ever regain normal function of his leg.
See, this is a bit here where so the snake bite came in here, and then this is the bit that remains quite concerning. Like there's bits of there I don't fit any of that area in there. It will be months before it really transpires what permanent damage is there in the leg, but I'm okay with that. Like I've got death in the eye, mate, and I'm so happy to be out of hospital.
Bethune says the ordeal hasn't put him off going back into the jungle to hunt illegal miners. He's now fundraising to pay the $40,000 hospital bill. They're especially popular this time of year, but there are calls for a shake-up when it comes to wine tastings. At the moment, only some celladors are allowed to charge, a move that's been labelled unfair. Jessica Roden has more.
A glass of bubbly at this Marlborough winery, and it's on the house. Like many celladors around the country, Number One Family Estate can't charge for wine tastings, even if they wanted to.
I don't think it's fair, and I think what we lack is actually the choice.
That's because they only have an off licence designed for the likes of bottle stores.
If you want to charge for a sample, you have to have an on licence, and that normally requires a kitchen and that you provide substantial food. Now that obviously adds to the cost, and that can add up to quite a lot.
For wineries with a small cellar door like this, it's just not an option.
The rules really aren't fit for the modern tourism industry.
COVID-19 has meant fewer cellar door visits as that international tourism market dries up. That's left many wineries struggling to cover the cost of tastings.
Sometimes at the end of the day, when we have half a bottle or less, we put the stopper in, but the next day we might decide it's actually not quite at its best and we'll open a new bottle.
Justice Minister Chris Farfoy concedes the licensing regime is challenging for wineries, but says officials are already looking at the issue. New Zealand wine growers say they don't think the public will mind paying.
If I went to a restaurant, a top restaurant in Newtown when I was on a holiday and said, look, would you mind if I tried 4 of your top dishes just to taste them and had a chat with the chef? I'd feel pretty awkward if I didn't pay for that. That's what we're being expected to do in wineries.
A small fee that wineries say would make a world of difference to their bottom line. Jessica Roden, One News.
Hayley is here with sport and more controversy at the Aussie-India cricket match.
Yes, and it's not very pretty with accusations of racism lodged against the Aussie fans. We've got that and more for you after the break, including good news for Eliza McCartney as the giggliest athlete in New Zealand eyes up a return to competition.
The giggliest.
Plus, a new initiative aims to put the wind back in the sails of our elite female athletes with the help of these two sailing superstars. And the man who took that catch at the Basin Reserve gives us a blow-by-blow on how the heck he got a hand to it.
Come into the light.
Your Sunday family movie.
Hello. You can talk.
Of course he can.
Oh, please.
Hello, sister. How are you? At the moment, on Channel 1, it's just advertising. You must be on a different channel. Goodness, it's 2.5 weeks ago. And you enjoyed church? Yeah. Okay, I'll let you go back. Bye.
What's she watching?
Well, she said there was something interesting on, but it's only advertising. I don't know what she... And if she's on Channel 3, it's no different.
Any
don't think you should eat the cream.
I might have a cup.
You're welcome to have some ice cream, but I don't think you should touch that cream.
I think. Oh no. What do I need to do? What about having? I might just have some biscuits. Can I have biscuits?
Yes, sure. There's some chocolate biscuits. Just in the cupboard.
Sorry to get you up.
Only two left there.
Fabulous. Has Andy ever told you about this new girlfriend?
Yes.
How old is she?
I don't know.
Well, that sounds like he hasn't said anything about her.
No. On Christmas Day, he was just driving away and he said, the latest gossip is I'm dating a lady. That's all I know.
Well, maybe he isn't.
Oh yes, he wouldn't say that if he wasn't.
Oh, I think you'd be surprised.
You think what?
I think you'd be surprised. So there's no real evidence whatsoever.
This is
What?
there is his word.
He said the latest gossip. That means nothing. What does that even mean? What's her name? She doesn't have a name because she doesn't exist.
Now just a minute. I will tell you what her name is.
Oh, God, help us. Jesus fucking Christ. It's really impossible to...
Jemima.
Oh, Jemima.
Jemima. There was a lovely children's book about Jemima the duck. And she has a daughter hanging out with my friend Jemima and her daughter in Wellington. That was over a week ago, and I said, I hope I can meet her soon.